My daughter had me declared incompetent and sold my house while I was recovering from surgery. When I confronted her, she laughed and said I'd be happier in a nursing home. What she didn't know was that the attic she never bothered to check held something worth more than the entire property. Before we continue, please subscribe to Grandma Tales and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The taxi pulled up to my house on Seaside Drive, and something was wrong. I could feel it before I even paid the driver. The shutters were closed. All of them. I never closed the shutters. The garden looked abandoned. Weeds pushing through the flower beds I'd tended for 23 years. My key slid into the lock, but when I turned it, nothing happened. I tried again. The deadbolt had been changed. I stood there on my own front porch, my surgical drain still tucked under my shirt from the mastectomy 2 weeks ago, staring at a door that no longer recognized me. A car door slammed behind me. I turned to see my daughter Jessica walking up the path, designer heels clicking on the stones. She looked surprised to see me. Then her face hardened into something I didn't recognize. "Mom, what are you doing here? I live here, Jessica. What's going on? Why doesn't my key work?" She pulled out her phone, typing something quickly. "You're not supposed to be here. Firth, the rehab facility said you'd be there for another month at least." Rehab facility? I was at my friend Patricia's house recovering, like I told you I would be. "Jessica, what is happening?" "Mom, we need to talk about this somewhere else. You're confused. The surgery, the anesthesia, it's affected your memory." "My memory is fine." Instead, she made a phone call. Her voice changed, became softer, concerned. "Yes, hi, this is Jessica Ross. My mother, Evelyn Ross, wandered away from her care situation. Can you send someone? I'm worried about her mental state." "Wandered away?" "Jessica, I'm standing at my own house." "Your former house, Mum." She said it so casually, like she was correcting my grammar. "You signed it over to me. Don't you remember? At the hospital, before your surgery, you were so worried about what would happen if something went wrong." The world tilted. I actually grabbed the porch railing to steady myself. I signed nothing. I would never sign over my house. She pulled up something on her phone, showed me a document. There was my signature, or something that looked like it, on a power of attorney form and a quitclaim deed. The date was the day before my surgery. I stared at that signature. I'd been a head nurse for 34 years. I'd signed thousands of medical charts, medication orders, patient release forms. I knew my signature like I knew my own face. The E was wrong. My E always had a sharp tail that curved back under. This one was rounded. Lazy. "That's not my signature." Jessica's expression didn't change. "Mom, you're sick. You're confused. I'm trying to help you. I've already moved your things to Seaside Meadows. It's a beautiful facility. You'll be much safer there." Seaside Meadows. The assisted living facility on Route Mort. I'd done rotations there as a nurse. Decent place, but it cost $4,500 a month. I'm not confused, and I'm not going to a nursing home. I'm 64 years old, I just had surgery, and I'm healing perfectly fine. Now open this door. I can't do that. The house is in my name now. Legally. I'm listing it next week. She was listing it. My house. The house my husband Daniel and I bought in Hyngen-Lermort. The house where we raised Jessica and her brother Thomas. The house where Daniel died in my arms 3 years ago, looking out at the ocean he loved. "Jessica," I said, keeping my voice level. "If you don't open this door, I'm calling the police." "Go ahead." She crossed her arms. "They'll see the deed is in my name. They'll see the power of attorney. And, Mum, they'll see a confused elderly woman who can't remember signing legal documents. They'll take you straight to Seaside Meadows themselves." A police car was already pulling up. Jessica had called them before she called me. The officers were professional. They looked at Jessica's documents on her phone. They looked at me, fresh from surgery, pale and shaking. "Ma'am," the older officer said gently, "do you have somewhere you can stay tonight? A friend or family member?" "My son. Thomas. I need to call my son." Jessica's face flickered with something. Worry, maybe. Thomas, she said to the officers, is overseas. Military. He's been deployed for 6 months. Mum sometimes forgets. Thomas was in the army, that was true, but he'd been stationed in Virginia for the past year. He wasn't deployed. Why was Jessica lying? I pulled out my phone to call him. But my hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 times. Voicemail. Jessica watched me with something like pity in her eyes. See? Mum, please. Let me help you. Seaside Meadows is lovely. They have activities. Other people your age. You'll make friends. Other people my age. I was 64, not 90. I'd just had surgery, not a stroke. The officers were looking at me like I was fragile. Like I might break. Like maybe Jessica was right. Fine, I heard myself say. I'll go to a hotel tonight, but this isn't over, Jessica. Not even close. As I walked back to the taxi, still waiting at the curb, I heard Jessica on her phone. Yes, everything's fine. She showed up. But I handled it. We can proceed with the listing. I'm thinking we price it at 400,000. Should move fast. 400,000 for a house worth at least 550. My house. Being sold at a discount for a quick sale. Where had I heard that before? Oh yes. In every elder abuse case I'd worked as a patient advocate. The taxi driver looked at me in the mirror. Where to, ma'am? The Harbour View Inn, I said. Then I need to make a phone call. What Jessica didn't know, what she'd never bothered to learn in all her 36 years, was that before I became a nurse, I'd worked as a medical records administrator in Boston. And before that, I'd taken pre-law classes at Boston University. I'd switched to nursing when I met Daniel. But I never forgot what I learned about documentation, evidence, and legal procedures. And I certainly knew that you couldn't forge a signature on legal documents and expect to get away with it. The hotel room was sterile and depressing. I sat on the bed and called Patricia, my friend who'd been letting me stay with her during recovery. Evelyn, Patricia said when she answered. Did you make it home okay? Not exactly. I told her everything. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, that absolute witch. Evelyn, you need Andrew Kim, Patricia's son. Attorney specializing in elder law and estate planning. I'd met him a few times at Patricia's dinner parties. I'll text you his number, Patricia said. Call him now, tonight. Andrew answered on the second ring. Mrs. Ross, my mother just texted me. Tell me everything, start to finish. I spent an hour laying it out. The surgery, the recovery at Patricia's, coming home to change locks, Jessica's documents, the signature that wasn't mine, the police, the assisted living facility. When I finished, Andrew was silent for a moment. Mrs. Ross, this is textbook elder abuse and fraud. But I need to ask you something important. During your hospital stay, is there any chance you signed something? Maybe something you don't remember because of the medication? No. I was clear-headed before surgery. I signed consent forms for the procedure. Nothing else. After surgery, I was too out of it to sign anything. And they know that. There's a 72-hour window after anesthesia, where signatures aren't legally binding anyway. Exactly. So if she's claiming you signed this the day before surgery, we can verify your mental state through hospital records. And if the signature is forged, we can prove that too. How fast can we move on this? I can file for an emergency hearing tomorrow. But Mrs. Ross, I need to ask about something else. You said the house was bought in High-in-Lermort. Is it solely in your name, or joint with your late husband? It was joint. When Daniel died, it went to me. We had a will. It was joint. We had a will. Do you have a copy of that will? I do. In my safety deposit box at Coastal Bank. We'll need that. And Mrs. Ross, one more thing. Do you have any other assets Jessica might not know about? I hesitated. Then I told him about the thing I'd been carrying alone for 3 years. My husband Daniel was an art teacher at the high school. But before that, before we married, he was a painter in New York. Small galleries. Nothing famous. When we moved to Maine, he stopped selling his work. said he just wanted to paint for joy, not money. He'd fill canvases and store them in the attic. Andrew was quiet, listening. Daniel died 3 years ago. Lung cancer. At the end, he made me promise something. He said not to tell the kids about the paintings. Not yet. He said they needed to make their own way first, not wait around for an inheritance. He said if something ever happened, if they ever tried to take advantage of me, the paintings would be my insurance policy. How many paintings are we talking about? 243. I counted them after he died. All signed, all dated, covering 40 years of work. Mrs. Ross, Andrew said carefully. Have you had them appraised? No. Daniel always said they weren't worth anything. He stopped selling because they didn't sell. Mrs. Ross, I'm going to connect you with someone. An art appraiser. I know, because if your husband was painting in New York in the 70s and 80s, and if his work was in galleries, there's a chance. A chance of what? A chance that Jessica is trying to steal a house that's worth a lot more than she thinks. The next morning, I met with a forensic document examiner named Dr. Sarah Chen. She was young, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and equipment that looked like it belonged in a crime lab. She studied my signature on my nursing license, my passport, hospital documents from before my surgery. Then, she studied the signature on Jessica's power of attorney. This is amateur work, she said after 20 minutes. Look here. She projected it on a screen. Your authentic signature has heavy pressure on the downstrokes. This forgery is lighter, more hesitant, and look at your E. You have a distinctive backward curl here. The forged signature has a completely different E formation. Can you testify to that in court? Absolutely. This is clear forgery. I'd stake my professional reputation on it. Andrew filed for an emergency hearing that afternoon. By evening, we had a court date for Monday morning. 3 days away. Saturday morning, a man named Vincent Russo knocked on my hotel room door. He was the art appraiser Andrew had recommended. He wore a rumpled suit and carried a leather portfolio. Mrs. Ross, he said, I need to see these paintings. My house is locked. My daughter changed the locks. Can you get in? Legally, I mean. I thought about it. The deed might be in question, but I still had rights. And I knew something Jessica didn't. Daniel and I had installed a bulkhead entrance to the basement back in Haing in Leonam. The lock on that had never been changed because Jessica didn't even know it existed. I can get in, I said, but we'll have to go now, while Jessica's at her real estate office. She works Saturdays. We drove to my house in Vincent's car. The neighborhood was quiet. I led him around back, through the garden, to where the bulkhead doors lay flat against the house. The lock was rusted, but my key still worked. We went down into the basement, then up the stairs into my kitchen. Everything looked wrong. Jessica had already cleared out half my furniture. Boxes were stacked everywhere, labelled for donation. The attic, I said. We climbed the narrow stairs. The attic was hot and dusty, and exactly as Daniel had left it. Canvases everywhere, stacked against walls, stored in cardboard portfolios, some still on easels. Vincent stood very still in the doorway. Then he moved forward like a man in a dream. He pulled out the first painting. A coastal scene, main rocks and crashing waves, painted in thick impasto with a palette knife. He turned it over, checked the signature, Daniel Ross. 1919. Then the next. An abstract, all blues and silvers. Daniel Ross. 1983. He went through 20 paintings in silence. Then he sat down on a box and looked at me. Mrs. Ross, do you know who your husband studied under in New York? He mentioned someone once. Hans Hofmann's school, I think, but that was closed before he got there. He studied with someone who studied under Hofmann. Vincent pulled out his phone, typed something, showed me a screen. Is this your husband? It was a young Daniel, maybe 25, in a gallery in front of one of his paintings. The caption read, Emerging Artist Show, Bowery Gallery. 1983. Vincent kept typing. More images came up. Articles from art magazines from the 70s and 80s. Reviews calling Daniel's work promising. Innovative. Important. Your husband was part of the New York abstract expressionist movement. He showed at major galleries. He was reviewed by serious critics. Mrs. Ross, do you understand what I'm saying? I stared at the paintings stacked around us. Daniel had never told me. Never said he was anything more than a small-time artist who couldn't make it. Why did he stop? Vincent asked quietly. I thought about it. We got married in 1985. Moved to Maine in 1986. Jessica was born in 1988. He chose us, I said. He chose a life with family over a life of art. Vincent nodded. A lot of artists made that choice. But Mrs. Ross, the art world has changed. The 80s abstract expressionist movement is having a major resurgence. Artists from that era who dropped out, their work is being rediscovered. Collectors are hunting for it. He stood up, looked around at the canvases. I need to do a proper inventory and appraisal. But Mrs. Ross, based on what I'm seeing here, based on your husband's exhibition history and the current market, I would estimate this collection at somewhere between $2 and $3 million. The room spun. I actually had to sit down. What? Conservative estimate. $2 million. If we find the right buyers, could go higher. There are 243 paintings here? Yes. Mrs. Ross, your daughter is trying to sell a house she thinks is worth $400,000. She's actually trying to steal a property worth at minimum $3.5 million. The hearing on Monday morning was in front of Judge Patricia Williams. She was in her 70s, sharp-eyed and no nonsense. She'd been on the bench for 30 years. Jessica arrived with a lawyer, a slick young man named Brad Foster, who clearly thought this would be an easy win. Confused elderly woman, clear documentation, simple case. They had no idea what was coming. Andrew stood. Your Honor, we're here regarding emergency case number Haingin Le Haimebon CV Chin Ngin Tam Chambon Mubai. Evelyn Ross versus Jessica Ross. We're alleging fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Brad Foster stood. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. Mrs. Ross signed a valid power of attorney before her surgery. She was concerned about her health and wanted her daughter to handle her affairs. This is a simple case of post-surgical confusion. Mrs. Ross is 64 years old, Judge Williams said dryly. She had a mastectomy, not a lobotomy. Do you have evidence that she was mentally incompetent when she allegedly signed these documents? Well, no. But the stress of surgery. Dr. Chen, Andrew said, please present your findings. Dr. Chen stepped forward with her analysis on a tablet. She spent 15 minutes showing the forgery evidence on the courtroom screen. Every difference magnified, every tell explained. Judge Williams studied the images carefully. This is clearly a different signature, she said. Mr. Foster, do you have any rebuttal to this forensic analysis? Brad Foster looked like he'd been slapped. Your Honor, my client provided these documents in good faith. We weren't aware. Your client forged her mother's signature on legal documents. That's not good faith. That's fraud. Jessica was pale. She tried to speak, but Brad put his hand on her arm to stop her. Your Honor, Andrew continued, we also have evidence that this is part of a larger scheme. Mrs. Ross's son Thomas, who is supposedly deployed and unreachable. Jessica lied about that. Thomas is stationed in Virginia. We have him on video call. Ready to testify. The judge looked at Jessica. Miss Ross, did you lie to the police about your brother's whereabouts? Jessica started. I thought it would be simpler. You thought it would be simpler to lie to police officers. Judge Williams made a note. Continue, Mr. Kim. Furthermore, Andrew said, we'd like to present evidence that Miss Ross has been planning this for some time. We have text messages between her and her business partner discussing selling the house while Mrs. Ross was in surgery. The phrase used was, she won't know what hit her. How did you get those texts? Jessica stood up, her voice sharp. Those are private. Your brother provided them, Andrew said calmly. You included him in a group chat and forgot to remove him. He's been watching you plan this for 3 weeks. Judge Williams looked at Jessica with something like disgust. Sit down, Miss Ross. But there's more, Your Honor. Andrew pulled out a folder. Mrs. Ross's late husband, Daniel Ross, left a will. In that will, He specifically stated that the house and all contents were to go to Mrs. Ross, and only to their children upon her death. He also left a sealed codicil with his attorney, to be opened in the event of any attempt to remove Mrs. Ross from the property, or claim incompetence. We had found the codicil Saturday afternoon in Daniel's lawyer's files. Mr. Phillips, now in his 80s, remembered Daniel coming to him 2 years before his death. Daniel knew. Mr. Phillips had told me. He knew Jessica was reckless with money. He wanted to protect you. The codicil revealed that Daniel had documented his entire art career. Exhibition history, gallery contacts, authentication records, and it stated that if Jessica ever tried to take the house, the art collection in the attic was to be immediately appraised and used to prove the property's true value. Andrew handed the codicil to the judge. Judge Williams read it slowly. Then Andrew played his final card. Your Honor, we've had the art collection appraised. Vincent Rousseau stood up, was sworn in. He presented his findings. The courtroom was dead silent as he explained. Daniel Ross's place in art history. The current market for Moknginchin, Chumbe Muis, and Dam Muis. Abstract expressionism. The 243 authenticated paintings. Conservative estimate, he concluded. $2.2 million. Jessica made a sound, like air being punched out of her lungs. So, Miss Ross, Judge Williams said, was attempting to sell a property she believed was worth $400,000, but which is actually worth, with the house and land and the art collection, approximately $3.7 million. Yes, Your Honor. And she did this by forging her mother's signature, while her mother was recovering from cancer surgery. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Williams looked at Jessica for a long moment. Then she looked at Brad Foster. Mr. Foster, I suggest your client start cooperating fully, because I'm referring this case to the District Attorney for criminal prosecution. We're talking forgery, fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. If convicted, Miss Ross is looking at significant prison time. Jessica started crying. Your Honor, I needed the money. I have debts. My real estate business is failing. I thought Mum would be better off in a facility anyway, and I could use the money to what? Judge Williams cut her off. To pay your debts by stealing from your mother, while she was recovering from cancer surgery. I didn't think she'd fight back, Jessica whispered. I thought she was just a nurse. I didn't know about the art. I didn't know Dad had planned this. That's the problem, isn't it? The judge's voice was cold. You didn't think. You didn't know. You just took. The judge ruled immediately. The power of attorney was void. The quitclaim deed was void. The house and all contents reverted to me. Jessica was ordered to pay my legal fees and damages, and the case was referred to the district attorney. As the bailiff led Jessica away, she looked at me. Mom, I'm sorry. I was desperate. I stood up. Jessica, I raised you better than this. Your father and I taught you about honesty, about family, about doing the right thing even when it's hard, and you threw all of that away for money. I didn't know about the paintings. That's not the point. You would have stolen from me even if the house was only worth $400,000. You would have put me in a home against my will. You lied to police. You shut out your brother. You forged my signature while I was recovering from cancer surgery. The paintings don't change what you did. They just change the price tag. She didn't have an answer for that. The district attorney, a stern woman named Rebecca Santos, called me that evening. Mrs. Ross, she said, I'm taking this case personally. Elder abuse is a priority for our office. Your daughter is facing multiple felony charges. Given the amount involved and the forged documents, we're looking at 5 to 8 years in prison if convicted. And if she pleads guilty, we might be willing to discuss a reduced sentence. But Mrs. Ross, I need you to know, she's not walking away from this. What she did was serious. We have denied. I understand. There's one more thing. Your daughter has 2 children. Your grandchildren. They're 7 and 9. If she goes to prison, what happens to them? That hit me harder than anything else. My grandchildren, Olivia and Marcus. I saw them maybe 3 times a year because Jessica always said she was too busy for visits. Now I understood why. She didn't want me knowing about her failing business, her debts, her desperation. Their father, I said. Rick. He's a good man. He and Jessica are divorced, but he has custody most of the time anyway. That's good. Just wanted you to know the full picture before we proceed. I hung up and sat in my hotel room, thinking about everything. About Daniel painting in that attic for 40 years. About him knowing, somehow, that Jessica might do something like this. About him protecting me even after death. About forgiveness and accountability and what it meant to be a mother. Jessica's plea deal came 6 weeks later. She would plead guilty to fraud and forgery. 3 years in prison, followed by 5 years probation. She'd have to pay restitution for my legal fees and damages, and she'd be required to attend financial counseling and therapy. The sentencing hearing was on a cold November morning. The courtroom was full. Thomas flew in from Virginia. Patricia came. Even Vincent Russo attended, wanting to see justice done. Judge Williams called the court to order. Jessica sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit. She'd been denied bail after they found she'd tried to sell off assets. Mrs. Ross, the judge said, would you like to make a statement? I stood. I'd written something, but looking at my daughter, I put the paper away. Jessica, I said, I'm your mother. I love you. I will always love you. But love doesn't mean accepting theft. It doesn't mean ignoring harm. You stole from me. You forged my signature. You tried to put me in a home against my will. You lied about your brother. You did all of this while I was recovering from cancer surgery. These are facts. But here's another fact. Your children need you. Olivia and Marcus didn't ask for any of this. They deserve better. So I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for accountability. You're going to prison. That's right. That's just. You broke the law. But when you get out, those children need you to be better. They need you to have learned something. I took a breath. I'm setting up trust funds for Olivia and Marcus. They'll have money for college, for their futures. But you won't be able to touch it. It's protected, because I won't let your mistakes hurt another generation. And the art collection, I continued. I'm donating half of it to the main museum of art in your father's name. Daniel Ross deserves to be remembered for his talent. Not for being the man whose daughter stole from his widow. Tampine and Gonis. The other half I'm selling to fund the trusts and to support cancer research. Jessica was crying. Real tears. This time. Real tears. This time. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was drowning in debt. And I panicked and I'm sorry. I know you are. I hope 3 years is enough time to figure out why you made these choices and how to never make them again. Judge Williams sentenced her according to the plea agreement. 3 years in prison. 5 years probation. Full restitution. As they led Jessica away, she looked back at me. I love you, Mum. So, I love you. I love you. I love you too, I said. And I meant it. Love and accountability aren't opposites. They're partners. That evening, I stood in my house again, looking around at the space that had almost been stolen. Thomas was there, helping me go through Jessica's boxes, sorting what to keep and what to donate. Mom, he said quietly, I should have known. I should have seen she was struggling. You're not responsible for your sister's choices, Thomas. None of us are. Said Jews, 10 V's K's to be, or ebe a 10, or ebe to be, or two poor a poor. The doorbell rang. It was Rick, Jessica's ex-husband, with Olivia and Marcus. Mrs. Ross, Rick said, the kids wanted to see you. They're confused about what happened. I knelt down to their level. Come here, you two. They ran to me. Olivia, 9 years old, with Jessica's eyes. Marcus, 7, with his father's quiet demeanor. Is Mummy in jail because she was mean to you? Marcus asked. Your mummy made some bad choices, I said carefully. She's in jail because she broke the law. But she's still your mummy, and she still loves you very much. Sometimes people we love make mistakes, big mistakes. And there are consequences for those mistakes. Will we ever see her again? Olivia asked. Yes. You'll visit her. And in 3 years, she'll come home. And until then, you have your daddy, and you have me, and you have Uncle Thomas. We're going to make sure you're okay. Grandma, Marcus said. Daddy says you're rich now because of Grandpa's paintings. I smiled. Your grandpa was very talented. He painted beautiful things. And yes, those paintings are valuable. But you know what's more valuable than paintings or houses or money? What? Family. Real family. The kind that tells the truth and keeps promises and takes care of each other. That's what your grandpa wanted you to know. That's what I want you to know. Over the next months, I settled into my life again. I had the locks changed back. I fixed the garden. I opened the house to the main museum of art curators who came to catalogue Daniel's work. The exhibition of Daniel Ross's art opened in the spring. 243 paintings, 40 years of work, finally shown to the world. The opening night was packed. Critics came from New York and Boston. Collectors bid on the pieces I was selling. The reviews called Daniel's work remarkable, visionary, an important rediscovery. He would have laughed at that. He'd never cared about fame. He just loved to paint. I stood in the gallery, surrounded by his colours and his vision, and I felt him there. Proud. Protective. Still taking care of me even after death. Jessica wrote me letters from prison. They came once a week. At first, they were full of excuses and self-pity, but slowly, as the months passed, and she attended her required therapy, the letters changed. She started taking real responsibility, started understanding what she'd done and why. I wrote back. I told her about the kids' progress in school, about the art exhibition, about my recovery from surgery, about forgiveness being a process, not a moment. After 2 years, I visited her. She looked different, older, harder, but maybe wiser too. Mom, she said, I know I can never fully repay what I took from you. The money, yes, eventually. But the trust, the security, the belief that family keeps you safe. I stole that. I can't give it back. All you can do, I said, is try to earn a small piece of it back every day. Show your children what real accountability looks like. Show them that mistakes don't define us, but how we respond to them does. She nodded. I'm learning that. It's hard, but I'm learning. Jessica got out after serving 2.5 years. Good behaviour. She came to see me the day after her release. Rick and the kids were with her. Olivia was almost 12 now. Marcus was 10. They ran to their mother, and she held them like she'd never let go. Mum, Jessica said, standing in my kitchen, the kitchen she'd tried to steal. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I understand now. I understand what I destroyed, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life being better. I know you will, I said. She's working now, 2 jobs, paying back the restitution. It'll take her 15 years at her current rate, but she's doing it. That matters. My house is full again. Thomas visits when he can. The grandchildren come every other weekend. We paint together sometimes. In the attic, where their grandpa worked, I teach them about his colours, his technique, his love of beauty. Some evenings I sit on my porch looking out at the ocean drinking tea from Daniel's favourite mug. I think about the test he built into our lives, the insurance policy he created without ever telling me. I think about how being underestimated, dismissed as just a nurse, gave me the element of surprise. I think about justice. Not revenge, but real justice. Jessica serving her time, learning from her mistakes, becoming a better mother. The trust funds protecting my grandchildren. Daniel's art finally getting the recognition it deserved. And I think about home. The physical house, yes, but more than that. Home is integrity. Home is knowing you stood up for what's right, even when it hurt. Home is teaching the next generation that actions have consequences, and love doesn't mean accepting harm. The sunset paints the ocean gold and orange. Olivia and Marcus are in the garden, painting their own version of the view. Jessica is there too, on probation, but present, trying. My family, broken and repaired in a new shape. Not perfect, Not what I'd imagined, but real and honest and trying. And that's enough. That's home. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to Grandma Tales, and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you listening from today? Thank you for being here.